they announce, I guess the Commerce Department put together a package to bring a electric car manufacturer, Canoo, I believe is how you say
Well,
it.
hold on, Mr. Singer. It's not
Oh,
an electric car. It's a lifestyle vehicle.
oh,
So
oh, oh, oh.
whatever the fuck that means. I guess
Wow.
it's a lifestyle vehicle. So there's that.
Pod-shaped vans. Man, I'm trying to remember if I looked this up once before and was like, huh, that's never gonna take off. So
Listen,
anyway,
it's like
oh good.
if they do Woodstock. Way I visit, it's like the Volkswagen
Yeah.
like van on the way to Woodstock. It's made in Oklahoma. So how in the fuck like this is going sideways so many different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And so anyway, so Reuters reported this, which is great. National outlet is like, maybe we should look at this because like the locals didn't manage to get basically any details on this except to reprint Stitt's press release and say, oh my God, somebody wants to come to Oklahoma. Thank goodness. Oh my gosh. It's like, come on, guys, have a little self-respect. But uh, Oklahoma's inferiority complex aside, I will be honest, this thing sounds pretty sketch. First off, 300 million in tax incentives on a facility that's going to cost $1 billion is really bad. Like, I mean, take it from someone who looks at a lot of tax incentives. I mean, to give you an example, like we have tax increment financing in Oklahoma City, TIFs. These are incentives for developers to build shit. And like the biggest one ever, I think, was like 10% of the total investment, private investment. Like that was the largest TIF we ever did was like, hey, here's 10%. This motherfucker's going like, 30 to 60% of the total build. Like that's like we shouldn't be on the hook for that much, guys. Like that's a lot. And it's only supposed to create like 2,000 jobs at peak, which would be like a subsidy if they take the full 300 million of like $150,000 per job, which like I mean, it's going to take you 20 years to earn that back, even with a high paying job. So there's a lot of things that like really don't sound great about it. I also think there's a bunch of weird stuff going on in Pryor. I mean, Pryor has had a big boom recently because they built a industrial tech park out there, and Google built one of their big, really large, I mean, it's a massive data center out there. But it's Pryor. Like, it's well outside Tulsa. Like, I just don't know where all these workers. I mean, you're gonna like basically you're just relocating workers. Like, there's not enough local skills, talent. I mean, people to like work that many jobs. So it's like I don't know. I guess good
Well,
for Pryor.
it's highly unlikely that it would ever approach that number of jobs. And there's a couple of things I want to get to. The first is overall these tax incentives to buy jobs, and then I'll get into some problems I have with the company and like special purpose acquisition companies and how that skirts certain regulations and the sketch is fucked too. But first and foremost, buying jobs through taxes. The return on these rarely, if ever, work, even when the percentage, as you said, is substantially less than 10%. When you given these taxes to large corporations, so the return on investment in each job purchase almost never pans out, even with a substantially less risky endeavor because you're paying less in terms of percentages. If you look at as what happened outside of Wisconsin, similar thing. There goes this big tech company, and Wisconsin gave them all these incentives, and that completely went belly up, right? Because you factually you cannot buy jobs, and here's the
Right.
reason you cannot buy jobs, especially with taxes. Companies are gonna fucking build where they want to build. Taxes, best case scenario, would make a trivial difference, but a trivial difference being like, okay, am I going to locate in DC or in Virginia? Am I going to locate in Virginia or in Maryland? Every city in America was trying to get Amazon. They chose New York City, Washington, D.C., and Nashville. Why? Nashville is one of the fastest growing cities in the Southeast, has tons of skilled workers. And I don't like the term skill because workers that have been invested in, tons of them are coming to Nashville. DC is the site of the DC is the most powerful city on earth. Right. That's just what it is. And it has a substantial number of people who have been invested in. New York City is the financial capital of earth. Right. And so as a similar thing. Amazon was never going to go to Gary, Indiana, or Pryor, Oklahoma, because the simple fact of the matter is infrastructure is not there for those companies to sustain themselves, right? Workers are not going to come to a place that cannot sustain itself. You don't have quality education, quality healthcare, quality place to live, quality housing, a quality place to live for employees. They simply are not going to come there. Full stop. So what is best is to use taxes to actually make great schools, right? Provide great healthcare, provide great housing, so individuals will want to move there and companies will follow those individuals. Nashville, Washington, D.C., and New York City has no problems getting people to move there, right? Nashville's asking motherfuckers to stop.
Yeah.
So
I drove through Nashville recently, and I mean, I've never seen so many cranes. And I'd been in Nashville 5 years before that and was pretty amazed at how developed it was, and it was even crazier this time. Anyway.
And that's why large companies choose to move there. No disrespect to Pryor, Oklahoma. I'm from Hugo, Oklahoma, so I can't disrespect no city here, right? There aren't a bunch of cranes going up in Pryor, Oklahoma. That's just not what's happening. And as far as moving workers there, a lot of them, believe it or not, will have options. Say, "Oh, I can move to Pryor, Oklahoma, or I can just leave this fucking company and stay where we are." So bye. Oklahoma has what's the quality of schools in Pryor? What's the quality of life in Pryor? Oh, it's that. Well, I'll just take this job at this other company and stay here, right? So you have to invest in places and invest in the people in those places, and then companies will follow, right? That money be much better spent investing locally.
Well, and it's a race to the bottom because it pits you into competition with these other well-resourced places. So it's like you're both just like tripping over yourselves to try give away more and more of our resources to these corporations. It's just, and
it don't fucking matter for the most part. Again, it would make a difference if you're thinking about Metro, don't want to go to Virginia or Maryland, right? Companies will not make decisions between Pryor, Oklahoma, and Nashville, Tennessee, or Pryor, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Pryor, Oklahoma, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. A tax incentive package will not make that difference for a company.